So I walked in here tonight and I thought to myself, I know I've been in this building before, and I was trying to remember why. My father was an African Methodist Episcopal preacher. I attended this church when it was an AME church.
Wow.
And now you turned it back into a synagogue. That's fine, just fine. I am thrilled to be here. I was telling Jennifer in advance that this kind of hits my sweet spot. As you can tell from my resume, even though it's been 7 campaigns, I don't know who started that. It must have been some other child using my name. But I covered, the White House, Congress, all these big-time glitzy beats, but truly, the sweet spot for me was always covering local and state government. That's where the work got done. That's where people kind of sort of answered your questions when you asked them, as opposed to what happens in Washington so frequently. And it's where people were accountable instantly for what they did and did not do to the people who elected them. That's something that doesn't seem to happen as much on the federal level. So that's kind of the leaping off point for the conversation we're going to have tonight. We're going to speak among ourselves here for a while, as if you're not even here. And then we're going to turn the questions over to you. So start thinking now. We're looking for really smart ones. There are 2 microphones here in the aisles, and at the preordained moment, I will summon you, and we'll just keep rocking and rolling until they kick us out. I am joined by a fabulous panel, people I've known for a long time, and people who have controlled my taxation. And Bruce Katz, to my immediate left, as you heard, is Vice President of the Brookings Institution and Founding Director of the Brookings Metropolitan Policy Program, and he's co-author of the book we're talking about tonight. He regularly advises federal, state, local leaders on policy reforms that advance the competitiveness of metropolitan areas. After the 2008 election, he co-led Housing and Urban Issues, the Housing and Urban Issues Transition Team for President Obama, and served as a senior advisor to the new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Sean Donovan, for the first 100 days, and then he got out, clearly. To his left is Jennifer Bradley. She's a fellow at the Brookings Metropolitan Policy Program and also the co-author of the book. At Brookings, she's worked extensively on the challenges and opportunities of older industrial cities and has co-authored major economic turnaround strategies for Ohio and Michigan. As an attorney, she co-authored Supreme Court amicus briefs in cases that affirm the constitutional powers of local governments. And of course, to my far left is former mayor of the District of Columbia from 1999 to 2007, Anthony Williams. He's now, as you heard, the CEO of the Federal City Council, which focuses on creative and administrative talents of Washington's business and professional leaders and getting them to focus on the major problems and opportunities facing the district. During his 2 terms as mayor, he restored the city's finances, he improved its governance, lowered taxes, invested in its infrastructure and human services. You wouldn't know it so much now, but we'll get back to that. Before his election, he served as the independent chief financial officer for the district. So this is an important panel. These are people who spend a lot of time thinking about just the things we're going to talk about now for the next little while. The book, as you will see, or if you have purchased or you will have gotten with your tickets as you walked in, touches on lots of interesting points, but I want to read one paragraph that caught my eye and ask Bruce to address it.
Sure.
The Metropolitan Revolution is not only about the local and traditional, it's also thoroughly attuned to the pace and tenor of modern life, spawned by technology and globalization. We are living in a disruptive moment that worships speed, extols collaboration, rewards customization, demands differentiation, I love all that, and champions integrated thinking to match and master the complexities of modern economies and societies. The Metropolitan Revolution is like our era, crowdsourced rather than close-sourced, entrepreneurial rather than bureaucratic, networked rather than hierarchical. So, if there is a revolution underway, Bruce,
right, that
implies an uprising. Who are we rising up against?
Well, that paragraph was my Jerry Maguire moment, by the way.
I found it.
I think I wrote that on a plane ride somewhere. I actually, and Jennifer and I, when we chose this, we went to Merriam-Webster and looked up the word revolution. And one of the definitions of revolution is a radical change in the way you think about things, right? And from an early age, we've been taught in this country that we have the president and the vice president, and we have the Congress sitting on top of our system. And they sort of rain down resources and rules, and they work with their co-sovereigns, the state government, the Union of States, to sort of set the framework for our country. And I think our main thesis here is that is really not how we function or operate as an economy or society anymore. We face major challenges today, we all know that. But the places that are basically powering us forward, that are stepping up, that are doing the hard work to grow jobs and make this economy more prosperous and our communities more prosperous, are the cities and metropolitan areas. And that's because they are the engines of our economy. We look at the top 100 metros in the Metropolitan Policy Program of Brookings. They sit on 1/8 of our landmass, they're 2/3 of our population, they're 3/4 of our GDP, and on every single indicator or lever that matters, infrastructure, human capital, innovation, they're 75, 80, 85, 90% of the nation's share. For all intents and purposes, we do not have an American economy. What we have is a network of metropolitan economies run by networks of leaders, not just government, but civic, philanthropy, university, business, labor, environmental. They're all powerful on their own, but when they come together, they can do grand things for their places and ultimately for the country. That's the revolution. Change happens where you live in this decade, and frankly, in an urban age, in a metropolitan century, in the United States and abroad. That's the way this country is going to power itself forward.
Jennifer, it seems that the challenge here is that one clause I just heard Bruce use, which is when they come together. That seems like it's harder than it sounds.
It is, but we have found that metropolitan areas, the functional metropolitan areas, understand that it's worth it. In the book, we tell the story of Northeast Ohio. And we say Northeast Ohio, even though it really doesn't roll off the tongue, rather than saying Cleveland or Akron or Canton or Youngstown, because those 4 metropolitan areas understood that individually, they couldn't really make a dent on the world stage, not when they're competing with Bangalore and Shanghai and the mega metropolitan areas of the rising nations. So they understood that they're interlinked economically, right? Cleveland can't flourish if all the places around it are sinking. So they got a group of foundations in these communities got together and they said, what can we do to change our economy, right? The decline of manufacturing throughout the 70s and 80s really hit them hard. These foundations said, we've been funding arts and culture and social issues. None of that is going to matter unless people have jobs. So they invested in ways to connect their small and medium-sized manufacturers to new suppliers and new industries. They figured out how to harness the benefits that not the benefits, but the institutions like the Cleveland Clinic, like Summit Health Systems in Akron, to manufacturers and entrepreneurs who wanted to take the ideas being generated in these institutions and make them into usable products. So it is a hard thing to do, but the benefits are profound. So again, in Northeast Ohio, we've seen about $10 billion in economic investment. Most recently, the Obama administration chose to put one of its new manufacturing innovation institutes around 3D printing, which has the potential to completely revolutionize manufacturing in this country, in Youngstown.
Whose investment are you talking about? Government investment, private investment?
It's been a mix of both. There have been companies started. There's about $330 million in new payroll, several thousand new jobs. So some of it is the private sector. Some of it is, as I said, the federal government saying, wow, you guys really have your act together. And we can check a lot of boxes if we give you guys something because it's spread out over a bunch of congressional districts coming together. You've got the state acting intelligently to support them. Places that work together tend to attract good things. We see that, across the country. We see it in Denver. That's another chapter in the book. So, yeah, it's hard, but a lot of the things that metros need to do to get their act together, as Mayor Williams knows, right? It's not for the faint-hearted, but if you set your mind to it, you can have a great return on investment, and that's what we want to show people, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that there's a reward for the work.
Mayor Williams, is this something that in your experience is already underway, or is this a brand new thing?
In my experience, I think it's already been underway. Another example of this is just at my job with Federal City Council, You know, we were founded on the kind of antecedent by Phil Graham, Don Graham's father, is a